everybody. Welcome to our fourth. Is it our fourth episode? I think it's four.
I think it's four. It's four.
It's number four. This is our fourth. Can you believe it? We are 4 episodes in with Monsters of Design. We still have a running hit list of monsters we want to talk about.
Those monsters are going to die.
They are going to die, and then we will bring them back to life, and we'll become friends with them. That's what's going to happen.
John, what do we talk about today?
So today we are going to talk about the monster known as Burnout. And this monster, I think everyone is aware of this, whether you're in design, film, literally, if you work, if you do something for free and you do it too much, you're going to burn out. So I think this is a very universal topic. And there are a lot of specific, things about this monster that do apply to this design industry of ours. And we're going to talk to a good friend of mine, Emily Hsiao. I worked with her for a number of years back in the day at MindBody. We were both art directors there in the marketing department, and we hustled. We worked a lot. And, she was much better at handling burnout than I was. I burnt out quite a bit. But, you know what? If I only had the wisdom that she shared today in this podcast, I probably would have been a lot better off. So hopefully any of you out there listening are able to tune in and really, really benefit from what she has to say, because she's great. She's pretty phenomenal. With that said, Brian, tell me what this monster known as Burnout looks like to you.
Everybody clear your minds. Okay, get clear. This is what I want you to think about. When we think about Burnout, we're thinking about this dude just engulfed in flames, just tossing balls of fire. Because here's the thing. When you're burned out, you're going to be throwing balls of fire and getting other people burned out. Burnout causes burnout.
Yep, 100%.
And fire spreads. Spreads.
Yep.
And, if you're listening to all of this and you're like, man, I don't really want to fucking hear about burnout, we got good news for y'all. Towards the end of the episode, we talk about beavers. We talk about aliens.
Octopuses.
We talk about octopuses. So we don't call them octopi anymore. The scientists said we can't do that, so they're octopuses. So we talk about beavers, octopuses, aliens.
Yeah.
Check that shit out in the show notes. If we have show notes.
Yeah.
And I think
we even get into Loki a little bit.
Should we just? Oh fuck, we get into Loki. Spoilers for Loki.
No spoilers.
Kind of.
No spoilers. Well, I don't think there is, right? Well, you'll just have to wait and find out.
We do talk about the vigorous, passionate love scene between Loki and Captain America. I thought that was one of my favorite parts of the show.
Season 2, Brian.
Season 2. Honestly, I thought it was really tender.
When are they going to write that shit in? When are they going to do it?
John, they already did do it. Are we watching the same show? Anyways, I think
you're watching the YouTube fan fiction version.
Yeah, it's I'm watching this free streaming service to watch all of my Marvel stuff. It's called Pornhub. It's a really great resource, and when I watched it, Captain America and Loki had a really good time together. So
yeah.
Anyways, Loki now streaming on Pornhub. Go check it out.
All right, here we go. I need to just hit record from the beginning, because now we missed all of that carny clown chatter. It would have been so good to put that in.
You're going to edit this, right, John? You're going to edit out all the bad shit?
I'm going to edit all the bad shit in. That's the plan.
Yeah, don't trust this man.
Is there a contract? I didn't sign a contract for this.
I signed a contract, Emily.
For me?
Now I'm missing a kidney. So Like,
Oh yeah, that happened to me last time. I only have one now too.
John, we've talked about this. Like, seriously, you need to stop with the organ theft.
Yeah,
It's part of his identity. So, as a friend, you should accept him for who he is.
All right, let's get this show on the road. So, everybody, welcome to episode 4. Our guest for today is Emily Hsiao. She's basically an all-around badass. Brand design manager. You lead brand and digital design teams where you're building design systems, brand guidelines, and continuously innovating, experimenting, and evolving brand identity. Emily, how are you doing today?
Good. What a wonderful intro.
You know
Feel
what?
so flattered.
You set us up for success, Emily, by just
That's
being
my
you.
job.
So how's your day going, Emily?
It's
a
going
Friday.
great. Yeah. We have this thing here where we have no meeting Fridays, so our Fridays are always really
Nice.
chill. It's a good wind down
That's
to the
awesome.
weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want that.
I mean, you guys are my meeting.
We're doing Summer Fridays.
What's Summer Friday?
Summer Fridays is where we basically like all sign off. I think it's like 2 or 3. Everyone tries to sign off like a little bit earlier because they know we're all putting in a little bit of extra time up front in the week. And so they're like, hey, like, as long as you guys put your 40 in, you guys can sign off a little bit early, take advantage of these Fridays during the summer. So it's pretty cool, especially with an episode called Burnout.
Yeah, definitely.
It's definitely a tool that has been helping our team sort of, even if we don't hit it, I think it's like this mentality of like, when you like realize, okay, there's more stuff I need to get done on a Friday, it just challenges it. And it's like, okay, can this wait? Because we're trying really hard to maintain this. So even just that, I think, is enough to like push people to not like overload expectations and stuff. So it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a really cool thing going on with me too on Fridays. It's called Crying Closet Fridays, and I get to spend a few hours in my crying closet. And
that's every day, I think, right?
It's great. Yeah, it's great. I have a little closet back there. It's just, it's just back there hanging out, and I just go in there. And we got a puppy.
Yeah, tell us who that dog is. Jax, right?
Yep.
Awesome. How's Jax doing?
He's good. Yeah, he's definitely mellowed out, due to old age as the rest of us. But yeah, he's doing great.
How old is he now?
He's 8.
What kind of dog is Jax?
He's a pit bull.
Last time it was a spider. Today it's a pit bull.
See, I find dogs.
Was
really
there a
cute,
spider
though.
in one of the episodes?
Yes.
Emily,
The
there
spider
was.
attacked Brian.
It was on my window, and I did not have a chill reaction at all.
Not
Just
chill at all. Lots of screaming, very high-pitched screaming.
So does the spider live in your closet now?
Dude, actually, I think so. So I'm in Santa Cruz, and there's too many spiders. Like, this is in Australia. Like, you need to dial your shit back. Yeah, I have PTSD from a few spiders because they're really fucking big. But like, if you have a pit bull's just gonna scare them away. Anyways, that's how it is in my head.
Oh no, Jax doesn't give a shit about anything.
Jax. And so, do you get to take Jax on like little walks and stuff?
I do. This is my first role where I've been fully remote. Auth0 is actually a remote-friendly company even pre-pandemic. And so I personally love working from home because you can like be with your dog all the time. You can take him on walks during lunch breaks. It's just really nice to be able to have that flexibility with, your work schedule.
And tell us a little bit about Auth0. I think that'd be a great way to kind of set up, where we're going with this whole episode and topic about burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. So Auth0 pretty much does like security and access management. So like in a nutshell, right? Like when you log into any digital experience, you have your credentials, you have that login box. We do all of the security and backend for that. So most recently, we were actually acquired by Okta. And I think you've used Okta before, right? So we do
totally
very similar things. Yeah.
Nice. And how long have you been there now? How long has it been?
A little more than a year.
Congratulations.
Nice. Yeah.
Thank you.
You loving
I know
it?
I had my 1 year anniversary. I do. I love it here so much. I feel so blessed to be working with such a talented team of designers and just colleagues. I've learned
That's
so
awesome.
much since I've been here. Everyone is just super passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just a great culture, you know?
Totally. And how does, because we worked together at MindBody a few years back. We were both art directors there in the marketing department. And how has your role from MindBody shifted a little bit now that you've ended up here? I know you've been, I think, one or two other places in between, but curious how that role has evolved over time.
Yeah, at MindBody, I felt like, and you experienced the same thing, John. I think titles are very different at different companies, but at MindBody was both an IC role where you're expected to design and create, and also a people management role. And here at Auth0, I'm focused purely on people management. I have an amazing team of designers from all over the world, and we use agencies and contractors. But I get to focus on just enablement and finding those opportunities for our team to go out and create something awesome. Most of the work we do here on our team is actually driven by our own design team, meaning we're not just reacting to requests that come in from other stakeholders or departments. We're finding those programs or initiatives that we think will make a great impact on the company and pursuing those. So most recently, we were able to launch a company-wide brand evolution, and that was fully design-driven and done in-house. And I'm so, proud of the team for the work they did on that.
Yeah. So does that mean like you don't have like a marketing department where you have like, your global marketing director that is going, okay, I'm going to figure out this campaign and then give it to the design team? Are you saying it's a little bit different than that?
Yeah, well, we obviously have a marketing team, and we actually have a brand marketing team as well, and they own campaigns and social media and things like that. But for the most part, when it comes to day-to-day production work, we put some time and effort into agency enablement and self-service tools and templates so that other stakeholders within the team are enabled to create the things they need to create while still adhering to our brand guidelines. But
Gotcha.
if it's not something that needs to be custom or strategic, we might as well templatize it so that it's easier for both parties.
Yeah,
and that in turn frees up time for our designers to focus on truly innovative stuff and flex their creative muscle. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so curious about that. I feel like we could do a whole episode on like just design systems. I don't know what the monster would be, but
oh, absolutely.
That's always been my thing, like how it relates to non-product design in a way, or even like the photo video, like even from MindBody, it's always been curious about that because MindBody, we were so attached to the product team that I got really curious about how photo and video could be more a part of the design system and be approached that way, because there's just so much you can do, and making sense of it ahead of time makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and one of the other things here at Auth0 is that our design org actually ladders up into the product org. So we're not a part of the marketing team, we're a part of the product team. And what that enables us to do is really think of our brand experience holistically. Like We're not just supporting marketing initiatives, we're supporting what the brand looks like within the product experience, within the marketing experience, and everything in between, right? So it opens up a lot of possibilities when you think about it that way.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's enabling all those different departments to be really like talking to each other, which oftentimes maybe not everybody is.
Yeah.
So that's a cool way to think about that and getting that going.
Exactly.
And it sounds like throughout, like, the larger scope of your career, you've had to contend with today's monster, or have had a relationship with today's monster, which is burnout. Nobody here knows what that is at all. We don't know what burnout is.
Never experienced that before.
No. So, yeah, John, what are we talking about when we talk about burnout?
So, I think we've been going through trying to find, like, which has not been very hard because I feel like there are plenty of monsters that we have been experiencing in this career. And it's really fun to kind of come up with a name or a type of monster that would represent these things. And burnout was like definitely one of the top ones that we were thinking about because COVID. And I think in during this time, we've all gone remote in this field for the most part. And it's really easy when you're designing to just wake up, go straight to your computer, and push well into the evening because you don't have to commute anywhere. It's just right there. It's right in front of you. And if you're excited about something, you might just want to put all the hours in. Then I think on the reverse side, when people are looking to reach out to their team members to do work, you can't really like check in to see how people are actually doing. If going over that 8-hour mark or whatever during the day is really going to affect them negatively. And so it's easy to burn out. And so I think there's just so many different ways. I'm actually curious, to see like how that might affect you. But I think that's essentially what it is. This monster is something that, again, is outside of like the designer, the manager, the client, the boss, whoever it is. And it's something that I think infiltrates this whole working process, especially now that, a lot of us are remote. And I think it was there beforehand. And in some ways it might be a little bit worse now. So kind of curious your experience with that, maybe in the past and even now today.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that makes us, similar, John, and I don't know about you, Brian, maybe you are a terrible worker for all I know, but I know that for both me and John,
no, I'm kidding.
One of the things we have in common is that we're both so passionate about our work and what we do, and just we give everything to that. Yeah. And so burnout is really easy to experience when you think it's something that is normal day to day. And even with COVID, right? Yeah, you're right. It's so easy to just wake up and immediately go to work. One of the things I've actively been trying to be more conscious of is setting those boundaries for myself and having spaces that aren't work, especially working remotely now. For instance, like having a morning routine, not bringing my phone with me when I'm getting ready. Don't check Slack on your phone, turn off notifications, things like that. Yeah. All these small things that don't really sound that, impactful, they add up. And I think it helps to just be mindful of your own boundaries so that you don't experience burnout during this time. Yeah. And actually, it's funny, but I feel like for myself, especially throughout my 20s, work-life balance was not something I really gave a shit about. It wasn't something, that I thought was, I didn't think I was at risk of burnout or anything like that. And then coming to Auth0, surrounded by people who are just so kind and passionate and caring and, care about your well-being, I started getting people saying, hey, we're worried you're going to burn out. Hey, why are you answering Slack so early? Things like that others pick up on. And it made me really check myself and say, oh, work-life balance and burnout is not just something that will affect me. It's something that affects everyone around me. And as a people manager, the last thing I wanted to do was set a bad example for my team. And so I feel very blessed that like my designers help keep me honest in this way, and that if I respond to something too early or too late, they'll be like, why are you online? This is not urgent. They help keep me honest. They help make sure I take vacation, because ultimately you can tell your team and you can tell the people around you that like, hey, they should take care of themselves. We want all our friends to take care of themselves. But if you're not doing the same thing, they're not going to believe you. You're setting a unrealistic expectation for what people actually think you want from them.
That is amazing that your team is cognizant and present and like scanning for that, because you're absolutely correct. It affects everybody. And I love that there's an ecosystem there that's supporting that kind of wellness. That is just wonderful to hear. In going back a little bit, in your 20s when you're just kind of going along, what did some of that work-life balance look like before you got where you're at today?
I think just, and this goes back to, my culture and family and the way I was raised, I think, in that I was always taught that anything is possible if you keep your head down and you work really hard. And so I've always prided myself on being a really hard worker. And that to me translated into being, working long hours and being super dedicated as an employee and just giving everything to that. And so throughout my 20s, that's what it looked like. And I feel very grateful that I've had the career path that I've had because I love what I do and I'm, working with people I love and creating things that I love. And I do attribute a lot of that to that hard work. But I think you reach a point where you realize that's not all it is, right? And you have to keep yourself mentally healthy in order to give back to the people around you and continue doing what you do. Otherwise, you're going to be in your 30s and break down.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing that I still feel like is hard, and it's a good tool for burnout, is just the power of saying no. And how has that because maybe there's that drive that's early on in your 20s where you're you don't want to say no because you're pumped and you're you don't have to you don't have a lot of things outside of work maybe that are going on. And I remember when I was young, it's just so much easier just to be yeah, whatever, I'll work into the night. And now it's I'm older, I don't have kids, but I definitely am man, I can't wait to hang out with my wife and watch a movie with her, have dinner with her. And so it's easier to say no because I'm protecting this sort of after work life, you know what I mean? But early on, how is that tool useful and why is it hard to use?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think both of us are in this industry because we like to help people, right? Mm-hmm. At the core of what I do, I like being a designer, I like being a manager because I like helping people. And so saying no can be really difficult, but something that I found to be really helpful is not just saying no, but saying no, but, or yes, and, right? So if you're saying no, don't just leave it at that. You can, help explain why or offer other resources or directions for that person, because ultimately everyone is just trying to do a good job. And if you're in a culture that's supportive of that, everyone will hopefully understand. Obviously, there's so much about a company culture that you can't control. And I think that's a whole different issue. If you're in a place where you feel like you can't say no, then maybe you need to find a more supportive environment for yourself. And that's totally fine too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
totally.
That's been really helpful for me to learn throughout my career.
Power of saying no.
Yeah, there's the saying no to an ask. There's the power of saying no to a project, and then saying no to a job. And I feel those are the tiers. If you can make it through the task, great. But then there's the project, and if you can't make it through the project, then you might get to that point where you realize you might have to say no to the job. It's hard.
Yeah, it's interesting. Especially Jon, I know you've done a fair amount of contract work as well. I mean, so much of my work is project based. And so it's trying to suss out okay, how much of this project is going to take over my life for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, and then compare. So if I get other client asks or other people coming to me with work, hey, are you interested in XYZ? I'll hopefully be able to have a read on no, I don't think I'm going to have that time. But before I would be I think I started by saying yes to everything. And then I quickly became a rusty skeleton. I was just oh God, I can't. And then I swung the other direction and started saying no to everything because I did burn out and I was afraid of burning out. And so then, but then that wasn't right either, right? Like, Emily, did you have any sort of like, what was your sort of exploration, like navigating, like what worked for you? Like how was that process discovering that?
Yeah, I am lucky in that I don't think I've ever reached a specific moment where I was like, I'm burning out. It's too late to come back from this, you know? And I feel like I caught it at a time where I was lucky enough to have people around me who were like, you're working too much. You're not taking care of your work-life balance, and you should prioritize that, to really help shift that mindset. And I think, you know, there's no right or wrong answer to what that threshold is for any individual. My tolerance for things back in my 20s is so different than now in my 30s, right? And that's okay. And it's because you're in a different point in your life. You have more experience. You have more say into the decisions you can make. You know, if you're working for yourself and you're first starting out a business, sometimes it can be hard to say no because you're trying to establish yourself, and that's totally fine. But yeah, I think it's just allowing yourself to evolve and change over time. And like I said, knowing how to set your own boundaries and knowing what those boundaries are for yourself in that moment, and not being afraid to stick to those. Because I do have better boundaries now than I would have even a couple of years ago. And that doesn't mean I wasn't taking care of myself back then. It just means, you know, I understand myself better now and what I want out of my career.
Yeah, I'm curious, you know, yourself now, where you're at in your career, and maybe not even speaking to your younger self, but even just like younger people who are getting started in this field as well, who might just hear that, man, you're just getting started. You got to hustle. You got to say yes to everything. You got to take on as much as you can. You got to build up that portfolio. You know, that might mean like working crazy hours, moonlighting. And I feel like that was such a thing. I mean, I definitely thought that was the truth, like when I was young. And I think for me personally, it led to me actually like fully burning out in my mid 30s because I just like cranked for 15 years. Like right out of high school, I was just like, this is what I want to do, and just cranked and didn't slow down, and I fully burnt out, and I had to like pause everything and then restart again. And I'm just curious, you know, what would you say to someone starting out that might have that in their head? Like, is that correct for a young age? Is there like a drop-off point that maybe you shouldn't do it for 15 years, but maybe you should do it for 3 years? Or is it like developing a structure that you can continue to grow moving forward?
Oh, definitely the last, right? I also think, you know, and maybe this is inaccurate, but I would think nowadays that the topic of mental health and balance is so much more prevalent than it was even 10 years ago when we were earlier on in our careers. And that's a great thing, right? Like, I don't ever remember anyone talking to me about work-life balance when I first started out. But now you hear about it all the time. There are articles about it. There's research and data that shows why it's better for companies and employees and individuals to care about this kind of stuff. And so I think the culture in general is changing, and you get to see things like, you know, no meeting Fridays and 4-day work weeks and remote culture. So there's so much positive progress that's being made in that sphere that I don't think any individual is alone when it comes to that subject. What I would say to someone first starting out, you know, again, I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all solution for anyone. But what I would probably tell myself back then is, you know, working hard does not equal working long hours and not having a life outside of work. Those are two very different things. You can be a really hard worker and be really good at your job and have those boundaries for yourself. And if you're working with people who don't respect that, if you're working with someone who's like, oh, that person didn't work until midnight and they look down on you for that, then you're working with the wrong fucking people. I'll tell you that right now.
Yes.
Preach.
I'm snapping for all the people who can't see me. It's and one of the consequences of burnout, and this was something that I've been contending with, especially with those long fucking hours. Man, if I am approaching burnout, or I know if in the past, if I'm just like hitting a heavy threshold, I make mistakes, and the quality of the work suffers.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right? And one of the things that's been encouraging, I think, in this discussion around work-life balance and having a conversation around this, a frank conversation in the workplace, is people, I think, are starting to understand that. Like, not driving your team into the late hours of the night, like not doing that, that's actually going to like preserve and maintain the quality of work. But then, I mean, there's a lot of people who would disagree with me, I think. I mean, there's still plenty of people who are like, no, if you're passionate, yeah, until 2 a.m., man, drink some Soylent Green. I don't know. But like, my brain, I just can't. Like, there comes a point where I start making stupid mistakes. And that's when I go, oh, I need to watch some Star Trek, take an edible, and like just chill the fuck out.
I mean, absolutely. Like, I'm totally going to misquote this, but there's research out there that shows how you have a threshold for how many decisions you can make in a day. It's not infinite, right? And so to a certain point, you're going to reach that limit every day where you've made too many decisions, you can't function properly anymore. And so everything after that is bullshit. You can stay up for another 5 hours working, but you're not going to get anything productive done. So what's the point?
Thank you. Yeah.
So how about the like, the whole thing about, artists that just deprive themselves of sleep, because once you get to that point where you're just so depleted, that's when true creativity comes out. Because that's definitely like a thing, right? Like everyone talks about that, like songwriters and blah, blah, blah and stuff like that. Like how would you speak to that sort of like extreme, where people just like, they want to burn themselves out for the purpose of creativity?
There's a difference, right, between what I personally have experienced, because I'm not one of those uber creative, like artist types of people. My experience is more in design within like tech and software environments, right? Like that shit is very different than someone who's going to go take shrooms and paint the most beautiful thing they've ever done in their life. And so I can't really speak to that. And I fully do believe that process works for a lot of people. I think in a corporate environment, though, if we're talking about like an 8 to 5, that's not productive. That's not conducive to like a good work environment.
Yeah, totally. Well, what do you think, almost like the flip side is of this? Like, because a lot of this stuff comes from somewhere that maybe isn't necessarily negative, like maybe it's like the desire to like serve people, or it's, just wanting to perform at a high level or just do your best work. What do you think some of those things are, and how have you seen them play out, in your career or the people you've worked with in a positive way?
Yeah, I mean, I just speaking from personal experience, I think the things that put us at risk of burnout, the passion for what we do, the drive, the wanting to help people, those are all such positive traits that I would never change about myself. Mm-hmm. And those are some of the people that I love working with the most. Jon, like when we worked together, we made some good shit, and I loved just, how in sync we were. And so I think the great thing about that too is that we're more understanding of where each other's coming from. And so we can also help emulate, the behaviors that we think are good for the people around us. I think it's one of those things where it's like anything in moderation, right? Like any positive can be a negative if there's too much of it. Mm-hmm. So just keeping everything balanced and in check is the goal.
Yeah, I'm thinking about. Oh, I'm not going to go off-roading there yet. I'm not going to do that yet. What I do want to know, Emily, so you mentioned a few of the things you do in the morning to protect your time, to create boundaries between you and the work you do. Can you walk us through in a little bit more in depth of like what are some of the exact things you're doing to just protect you?
Yeah, these sound kind of minuscule, but one of the things I found really helpful is literally just turning my Slack notifications off on my phone and moving the app to my last screen. So it's not the first thing I see when I open up my phone. And it helps me not constantly check my notifications because no one expects you to be online all the time. It's your own pressure you're setting on yourself. But for instance, in the morning, sometimes I'm guilty of opening Slack when I first wake up and responding to someone because we have people in different time zones. Being in California, I'm always the latest time zone. And so there's always something for me to check. And so stopping myself from doing that is the first thing, making sure I have time for my dog, taking him on a walk, working out for 30 minutes,
Okay, wait,
making my tea.
Wait, go back for a second. Okay, question for you. So your dog. So this is something I've been doing in the morning, trying to be intentional because I've been going on my morning walks. Do you keep your phone with you when you go on a walk? Do you check your phone? Like what does your relationship with your phone look like when you're walking your dog? Because this is...
that's a great question. I don't intentionally. And that's one of the things too, is that I intentionally don't bring my phone with me when I'm doing my morning routine because you don't need it. Nothing's going to blow up. And if you have it, you're going to check it. And so something like walking your dog, right? You don't need to check your phone. Why do you need your phone? If something bad happens, well, that's the end of you, but your phone's not going to help you. So
just carry a taser.
Do you ever, this is something I've been doing lately, just like book out like time on your calendar, just to book out time, like whether it's because you want to be heads down on a project or you just want to make sure that there's like untouched time. It might be a little bit different. I know when you get into management, it's like you just have meetings all the time. But for someone that maybe doesn't have meetings all the time, are there any other practical tools, like you said, like the way you use Slack or maybe calendar use or anything like that?
Yeah, I have recently started blocking off time in my calendar. And you're right, most of my day is just spent in meetings. And so what I try to do every day is at least have a block for some sort of lunch period so that I'm not just in 8 hours back to back. I'll check my calendar at the beginning of every week and block off any time that I see is free so I don't get too many last minute meeting requests, the day before. So that is definitely really helpful. Slack also this is a promo for Slack. I'm not getting paid for this, but they just released a new feature.
She's lying.
I would love to work for Slack. No, they're great.
She's getting a new kidney.
I need to store those extra kidneys, I'll give you one, Brian.
Thank God.
But they just released a new feature where you can actually schedule messages out in advance. There used to be an app for that called Gator that we would use here. Yeah, but now it's actually a Slack feature. So you can choose to send your message, like if you're working with people in different time zones or you think of something you want to send someone, but you don't want to Slack them at midnight, you can send it, schedule it later in the morning, right? So that's been super helpful just as a manager to have.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people also use this Google Calendars integration called Clockwise, where you can pretty much set like your working hours. They'll find, blocks for you to have breaks, things like that. I haven't used Clockwise, but I know a lot of people love it. So
yeah, it's so funny. I totally did that today. I scheduled some time to how do I say this when people are listening?
Cry in your closet?
Yes. I scheduled some crying time and people were like, Brian, can you do this thing? And I'm like, I have client work. I'm so sorry. And really, I'm just looking at Slack messages and crying every time I hear the little pop Slack sound. What is that? The boop, boop, boop? That was a terrible Slack impression.
I don't like that sound.
There should be a plugin that allows you to change that and like just set it to like a bunch of different things because
birds.
Oh, I'm surprised there's not. That's a great idea.
Yeah, birds, peaceful birds, like an alarm. You know, we can have peaceful alarms like the ocean, or like, or John giggling.
Oh no, we don't want that.
Yeah. Can you imagine every time something happens, you just have a John giggle?
Now I'm trying not to laugh because I don't want to. There was one thing I wanted to bring up, and I think, like we were saying, like there's this sort of burnout where you're not really in this remote world pre-pandemic, and then everything happens over this past year and a half, and now we're experiencing a different kind of burnout. And you know, for me, like this morning, I West Coast, California, so it's very interesting because I think we're all learning, like we have these different ways of like working based off of like time zones, because a lot of us in this field are working with people across the country and even globally now. And I work with like people in like Barcelona and Berlin and New York, and it's like this whole like different time zone. And a lot of times it requires me to get up really early. Like I had a client meeting at 6:30 this morning, and I can get up in the morning. I actually kind of like it sometimes, but it's definitely like, it means my day is shifting dramatically. And like today I had to just like, not even a lunch break, just to make up time. Like I had to go ride my bike for like an hour, like just to get out of the house and like realize that my schedule shifted in a way it might not have in the past. If I was just going into the office, I probably wouldn't have taken a 6:30 meeting, right? Like those things didn't happen as much as I think they do now, because it's really easy to get out of bed and make a cup of coffee and go straight to your computer. So what would you say to, you know, speaking to that sort of like empowering yourself to take it, like if your schedule is going to be forced into something flexible, do you feel like it's up to us and that we do have that power to like make sure our schedules are flexible in response to that, getting our time back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just up to what you feel comfortable with as an individual. Like sometimes I'll admit I'll take meetings earlier than 8 if I know I'm already going to be up and I'm okay shifting my day a little bit earlier, you know, because I personally feel comfortable with that. But that being said, that doesn't mean you should be expected to. And I think that's what the difference is. And I think one of the great things about Hsiao is that because we're primarily remote, everyone is dealing with the same, you know, environments, right? It's not like you're the only person in a large company that's remote, so you need to accommodate to everyone else's way of living. Everyone here deals with the same type of things. And so because of that, we're all very respectful and very mindful of these different time zones. We have a lot of people in Argentina because we have a headquarters there. We have people in Europe and New York and Canada. And so, you know, with tools like Slack and Google Calendar, it shows you people's time zones. It makes it really easy to make sure you're being respectful of when their working hours are. But again, it's not just up to one individual. It needs to be a company culture thing, and where everyone is on the same page and acknowledging, hey, people can't be scheduling meetings at 6 a.m. because other people are in California and things like that, right? But again, John, I know you're in like the agency setting, whereas I'm more in-house. And so I'm sure there are a lot of differences there as well.
And to be fair, it was an optional meeting, but it was one that I was like, man, I really just want to hear what the client is saying because I want to get a good understanding. But I think that's the thing, right? Like that's why I don't feel burnt out. And I feel like I had the freedom to kind of flex my schedule because it was optional. You know what I mean? And
Exactly.
If it wasn't, it was like, hey, you need to be here, I probably would feel burnt out today. But I did it because it was like, no, I want to. I can get up early, you know? And I think that's the respect that you're talking about. And the same would go for, I think what you're saying is like, for us being on the West Coast, we know that people on the East Coast and even further into Europe their days are ending when ours are starting almost. So we have to be respectful of that. You know, like the guy I work with in Berlin, like if I book a meeting with him at 11 a.m. our time, that's like his nighttime. So I need to be respectful and try to take advantage of those like 8 or 9 a.m. times to really meet with him, so I'm not, bleeding into his nighttime. And so it goes both ways. For sure.
Exactly. Just don't be an asshole,
So I want to talk about your favorite monster. I know you might not have an answer, but when I say, like, is there a monster in life? Could be a cartoon monster. Could be a really scary monster.
An actual person.
Could be a Pokemon. Could be John. What is a monster?
My answer is John.
There it is.
I knew
He's
it.
a
I knew
fucking
it.
beast. Stealing people's organs. Do you have a monster besides John that you resonate with, or like that you love? Or you're like, no, dude, I have a dog. Like,
I do have a dog, but I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Mine was Swamp Thing. That was like my favorite monster. And Brian's are usually Godzilla-esque monsters.
Well, today they're badgers. Their badgers have my attention. No, not badgers, beavers.
I was like, what's wrong with badgers?
Sorry,
what's
badgers are cool.
Beavers?
Beavers are interesting. I mean them. Beavers are designers. Like a monster isn't necessarily a bad thing. So like
exactly.
I'm not even letting Emily ask her question. I'm part of the problem. But beavers are little designers. So you know why they create dams? So
do they?
So they build dams to create little ponds so they can build their home. It's called a lodge, a beaver lodge. And they build tunnels in the lake or pond that they've already created with the dam to underground tunnels into their lodge, into their little home. Anyways, beavers are incredible. So maybe it's just an animal, Emily, is what I'm saying.
Where does the monster element come in? I'm still confused.
Shifted. Yeah, shifted dramatically. You know what? I don't have a specific monster, but recently I've been seeing so many things about, the creatures that live in the ocean and how there's so much that we haven't explored yet. And just all this shit that lives down there that is just wild. I don't have like a specific creature, but it's just really interesting to
Deep
think about.
Deep sea monsters.
That's I will not go down there.
It's dude, it's some crazy shit.
Yeah.
There's like, what's down there? Like, I don't know. There's anglerfishes. What's up with that?
Have you seen I think it's on Netflix, My Octopus Teacher?
Oh, people keep recommending this to me.
I just watched it.
No. John, have you seen it?
Yeah, and I was like...
Fuck! I need to... Okay.
Tears.
Well, first of all, my first reaction was, what the fuck is this guy doing? He has a son, right? And he's spending all this time visiting this octopus. Like, what about his family? But once I got past that... I was like, that's fucking incredible. Like, this octopus is so smart.
Do they talk about how they have brains in each of their tentacles?
Yeah.
They essentially have?
It's like a kind of a, how would you describe it, John, in video terms? It's like a documentary type of thing where this guy is just, capturing his interactions with this octopus that he visits over like a year and develops this bond with. And then no spoilers. But one day, like, she gets attacked by something and loses some of her limbs, and he thinks she's dying. Like, it's emotional shit.
Oh, I'm going to do that shit. I'm going to get real
But it's like one of those, like, it teaches him. I mean, that, of course, it's like My Octopus Teacher. But the whole idea is, like, he learns, like, life lessons from this. And so, like, it helps him be a better dad, sort of idea. But it's honestly super
I know,
sweet.
But I was like, where the fuck were you this whole time? Your kid's been alive this whole time. You're spending all your time with a fucking octopus.
Emily has some notes for My Octopus Teacher. And you know what? I think they're valid.
I've already emailed them to Netflix.
Good.
Like,
it's fair.
So, have you heard this theory that because octopi No, that's not real anymore. Scientists say don't use octopi. It's octopuses. John, don't laugh.
Which sounds way better.
It does.
Well done, science.
So I got yelled at for using octopi. I didn't get yelled at, but so octopuses, their DNA is so different and unique. Have you heard this definitely scientifically accurate theory that they're actually aliens? That it was like alien DNA carried on from like a meteorite or a meteor, and like dropped in the ocean, and the DNA just like affected the marine life, and boom, octopuses.
No, I have not heard that, but I love that.
Isn't it great?
Because I fully believe in aliens. How would we think that we're the only living beings in this entire universe? How self-centered are we to think that?
So I'm all in on that too. Believe me, I've watched like every season of Ancient Aliens. That dude with the big hair. I'm all in. But current events, I guess they're not current because we've been seeing these like UFO videos for a long time now. But the fact that they're like official, what are your guys' thoughts on those? Real? Not real?
Oh, I don't know. It's so hard to. It's so hard to know what's real and not when it's like you can't validate the source of like the thing you're watching. Anything could be made up. I believe aliens are real. I don't know the validity of anything that circulates the media channels nowadays, but something's out there. Those are my thoughts.
So that's really valid and really interesting, because I think that's one of the things that's kind of come up is, right, essentially we've the government has identified the existence of these vehicles in our airspace, and they say, they have a series of behaviors that they attach to these vehicles that are outside any of our capabilities. So the government's acknowledging this, and we're at such a point where we're all like, yeah, but do we trust the government? Like,
yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Like the government's like, so, there's a chance that this could be aliens. Just letting you know. And we're all like, yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, we believed it before they admitted, but now they admitted, we're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I've talked to so many people who are like, yeah, like I definitely think aliens are real, but like, I don't know. I think the government's full of shit. And I'm like, this is how it's going to go down. Like they're fully like, we're going to see like a UFO in the sky, and we're going to be like, oh God, like what's the Air Force done now?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just Jeff Bezos, right? Or Musk.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely Jeff Bezos trying to get to trying to go back in time so we can get to space quicker than Richard Branson.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Or it's aliens, and once they took a look at us, they realized that we haven't figured burnout out yet. And they're like, I'm out here.
Or
once the civilization can get past this burnout
that was beautiful. Do you think aliens are burned out?
Beautiful.
Wait, do you think aliens have good work-life balance?
I mean, if they can figure that kind of technology out, then they must have.
Like, what do you think their day looks like?
I think they work like 3 hours a day, and they work 4 days a week. I think they figured their shit out.
So, yeah. So what? Yeah. How do we get here?
Where are we?
What is
this? What are we talking about?
So you're. But
I stopped recording like 30 minutes ago, by the way.
Mons. You stopped?
I'm joking.
Oh, Jesus, fuck. It's about to launch you into the ocean. John, how about you? What's like a monster you're thinking about right now that's not Swamp Thing?
It's a good question. I would say the Lithe. That's how you say it, right? From Loki? Is it
Eliath?
Eliath. Okay,
like Goliath, but it's just Eliath. He's the purple cloud boy. Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about Loki really quick, Emily.
Yeah. If you haven't seen it, it's really good.
I have not.
Season finale just happened.
He's referencing referencing a giant cloud.
Yes. It's like a cloud dragon.
Purple cloud.
It's like a dragon made out of a cloud, and it devours.
Is it like a Pixar movie?
Reality.
What is this?
No. It's
a Disney Plus show.
Emily.
Sponsored
Hey,
by Disney
I
Plus.
love Disney Plus. Have you checked out their Nat Geo section? It's fucking bomb.
No,
Yeah, I have.
I need to do that.
Dude! They have a great whale documentary. Okay.
They do. They have great
Ooh.
documentaries.
I'm going whale watching
Good
soon.
stuff.
Speaking of whales. Anyways, we're gonna go on tangents forever.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up so Emily
We're gonna
can,
burn out this episode.
God, we're just Emily, keep talking about monsters for another 3 hours. No, and then nobody asked, but beavers wasn't my
Bryan?
real answer. Actually, I just really wanted to talk about beavers when I said that, so I made it about me.
Don't worry, we're gonna edit that part out.
No, you better
We're going to edit you out completely, I think.
That makes sense. That makes 100% sense. I would say, piggybacking with Loki, I want to say he's not a monster, but maybe he is alligator Loki. He's literally
That's
an
a good
alligator
one.
with a Loki helmet.
Yes. Yeah. Emily's like, I don't know what the fuck
I
you
have
guys are
no idea what you guys are talking about.
It's great. I just needed to say that. Okay. Well, on that note, Emily, thank you for spending these last hour and a half with us. Jesus Christo.
Thanks for putting up with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Emily,
a lot, but glad to be here.
It's always a lot. Where can people find you if you want them to find you, or maybe you don't want them to find you?
I mean, no, why would I want that?
Okay.
No, well, yeah, you can look up my portfolio. I have a Medium account where I try to write thought leadership articles from time to time. You can just text Jon, he knows where to find me.
Just let me know. Yeah.
You're
Yeah, let me give out Jon's phone number real quick so people know where to find
It's
him
555.
and his home address.
And it's your handle at Medium is
I don't know, man. Does anyone
I have it
really know
right
what the
here.
handles are?
I have it right here, don't worry. It's so it's medium.com/@Emily Hsiao. And that's
Yes, so it's-
EMILY.HSIAO.
Correct.
You got it, Bryan.
I did it!
It's actually Brian's account, and I just signed my name to it.
Yeah, I'm a ghostwriter.
Our next article will be about beavers, so stay tuned.
Seriously, beavers are designers. You should look at how beavers solve problems. They're amazing.
I'll take your word
They don't
for
burn
it.
out. That's how they build those dams.
I
They figured
disagree. I bet beavers are at high risk of burnout.
You're like, beavers fucking suck. And
Bad
they suck
designers.
on land. That's why they build little water palaces. They're
Man,
so
we suck
cute.
in water.
Yeah. All right.
Fair.
So, anyways, Jon. Well, hold on. Let me wrap this up officially. All right, everybody. That is our episode. We'll see you next time when we interview. I don't know who the fuck we're interviewing.
Yeah,
It'll be a
we actually
mystery.
haven't lined that up yet. We'll see where it goes.
And we're gonna talk about a monster of design. So, anyways, we'll see everybody next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you.
Bye.